My name is Delia Mercer. I'm 34 years old. On November 27, 2025, at 4:12 in the afternoon, I was standing at the head of my mother's dining room table at 818 Cherry Bend Road in Owasso, Michigan, holding a plate with 2 slices of white meat on it, when my sister reached over and put her hand flat on the serving spoon. "Maybe go easy, Dee," Bryn said, loud enough to reach the kids' table. "You didn't contribute a penny to this." Somebody laughed, the way people laugh when they hope it's a joke. Bryn smiled at the room like she was handing out door prizes. "Some people bring a dish," she said. "Some people just bring themselves. And honestly, that's the cheaper option." I didn't argue. I didn't set the plate down. I didn't cry, and I didn't look at my mother, though I could hear her chair creak as she shifted her weight. I put the spoon back in the potatoes, took one more scoop, and sat down in the chair nobody ever fought me for, the one by the drafty window. And the room froze. Not because of what Bryn said. Because of what my mother's face did when she said it, the way it emptied out, all at once, like a sink draining. What Bryn didn't know was that the table she was standing over, the floor she was standing on, the roof over all 11 of us, and the $200 of Butterball and Costco pie on the good china, every inch of it had been paid for by the person she just told to eat less. And in the inside pocket of my coat, hanging in the hall closet 9 feet behind her, was a white envelope I had planned to hand my mother that night as a gift. I never handed it over. By 7:03 that evening, my sister would be standing on the porch in her stocking feet in 26-degree weather, and a woman named Marla Beecham would be reading a document out loud in the doorway. Before I tell you how a single sheet of paper emptied that dining room in under 4 minutes, please take a second to like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time in the comments below. I love knowing where in the world you're listening from right now. I need to take you back, because a sentence like the one Bryn said doesn't come out of nowhere. It grows. It gets watered for 30 years. My father was Ray Mercer. He climbed poles for Consumers Energy for 26 years and died on March 3, 2016, in the driveway of that house, with a bag of rock salt in his hands. My mother, Carol, was a middle school secretary in Owasso for 19 years and had a genius for one thing, math. Not the kind you do on paper. The kind families do in the dark. She had 2 daughters, and she looked at us and decided which one was an investment and which one was overhead. Bryn was 4 years older than me and beautiful in a way that made adults act stupid. She was Blossom Queen of Shiawassee County in 2004. There is a photograph of her in a tiara on our mantle that has been dusted every week for 21 years. There is no photograph of me on that mantle. There is a picture of me in the hallway, at the top of the stairs, where the light doesn't reach, taken at my high school graduation, and my mother put it in a frame that still had the sticker on the back. I was the one who counted things. I don't know why. At 9 years old I kept a spiral notebook where I wrote down what things cost, because in our house money was a weather event nobody would explain to me. Rent, no. Mortgage, $611. Dad's work boots, $89. Bryn's dance recital costume, $140. I wrote it all in pencil, and I added it up wrong for years, and then I stopped adding it up wrong. The person who taught me to keep that notebook was my grandmother, Ruth Mercer, who was born in that house in 1936 and who smelled like Jergens lotion and burnt coffee and cold cream. Nana Ruth had a kitchen with a yellow formica table, and she let me sit at it for hours while she snapped beans. She didn't tell me I was smart. She told me I was accurate, which is better. "Keep your receipts, Delia," she said to me once, when I was maybe 11. "Not for them. For you. So that when they tell you what happened, you'll know." Another time, and I've never forgotten the shape of it, money's quiet. Loud people never have any. Here's what the family math looked like in practice. When Bryn turned 16, in 2003, she got a 1997 Honda Civic with a bow taped to the windshield. When I turned 16, I got a job. Vernon's Market on Main, $5.15 an hour, bagging and then stocking and then, by 17, doing the weekly inventory count because I was faster at it than the owner's son. Nobody drove me. I walked, and in January I walked in a coat my mother got out of the donation bin at St. Paul's, a men's canvas coat, brown, 3 sizes too big, and when I said something about it she said, "It's warm." Beggars, choosers. I want to be careful here, because it's easy to make this sound like a movie. It wasn't dramatic. That's the part people don't believe. It was administrative. It was small line items, entered daily, for decades. In 2009 I graduated from Owasso High School with a 3.9 and a partial scholarship to Central Michigan, and there was supposed to be $3,200 in a savings account with my name on it, opened by my father in 1998. I found out in July of that year that it had been closed in April. It went toward the deposit on Bryn's wedding venue, the barn at Cedar Hollow, which is a lovely place. I've seen the photos. When I asked my mother about it at the kitchen sink, she dried her hands very slowly, and she said the sentence that I have carried in my back teeth ever since. Bryn shines, Delia. You endure. That's not an insult. That's just what each of you is for. At the graduation dinner that June, at a Big Boy on M21, there were 7 of us and 6 meals ordered, because Bryn had assumed I wouldn't want anything. When I said I did, she looked at my mother, then at me, and she said, "You don't get a plate, you get leftovers." That's the Mercer rate for people who don't earn. Everybody laughed. Uncle Wendell didn't. He got up and ordered me a hot fudge cake and set it down in front of me without a word, and that is the only thing I remember about that night. I went to Central. I paid for it with loans and with the third shift at a Meyer distribution center in Lansing, and I graduated in 2013 with an accounting degree and $41,000 in debt and a habit of never asking anyone for anything, which is not a virtue, no matter how much it looks like one. My father died in 2016. Nana Ruth was 80 at the time, and my mother moved into the Cherry Bend house to look after her, and in 2018 Nana Ruth deeded the house to my mother, free and clear. No mortgage. 91 years in the family. My grandmother said one thing to me on the phone that week that I didn't understand yet. This house was never about who sleeps in it, she said. It's about who keeps the lights on. By 2021 the house had a $58,900 second mortgage on it. I'll tell you where that went, because I eventually saw every dollar of it. $22,000 went into Grant Kessler's franchise idea, my brother-in-law, 41, a very tall man who sells orthodontic equipment and has never once in 15 years finished a sentence he started. $19,000 went to a kitchen remodel at Bryn's house on Sherwood Drive, which she needed for client credibility, because she'd gotten her real estate license in 2019 and hung it at Halcombe and Pine. The rest went the way money goes when nobody writes it down. On May 14, 2021, my mother called me at 6:32 in the morning. She hadn't called me first for anything in my entire life. She was crying so hard I thought Nana Ruth had died. What had happened was that a notice of foreclosure had come, and the redemption window was 91 days, and there were also $11,472 in delinquent property taxes. I was 29 years old. I was a staff accountant at a forensic firm in Grand Rapids, Haldeman and Coyne, making $71,000, living in a one-bedroom on Fulton Street with a mattress on the floor, and I had $63,500 in a Fidelity account because I have never in my life spent money I didn't have to. I asked her one question. I asked her what Bryn had said when she showed her the notice. My mother went quiet for a long time. Then she said it's not her name on the deed. I drove to Owasso that Saturday. I sat at the yellow Formica table. Nana Ruth was 85 then and still mostly herself, and she looked at me over her coffee and she said, "Don't be a hero. Be the owner." So we went to a lawyer. Her name is Marla Beecham, 58, a solo estate attorney with an office above a dry cleaner on West Main, and she had done Nana Ruth's will in 2004. On August 12, 2021, I paid off the second mortgage, $58,900, and the taxes, $11,472, and on Marla's advice, with my mother's signature on every page, the deed to 818 Cherry Bend Road was transferred to Maine. Not because I wanted a house in Owasso. Because it was the only way to stop it from being borrowed against a third time. My mother agreed to it. And then she asked me, in Marla's parking lot, in the rain, for one thing. "Don't tell your sister. I want you to understand that I said yes to that. That's my part in this. I said yes, because she was 61 years old and humiliated, and because some idiot part of me thought that keeping her secret was the same as being loved by her. So for 4 years, I was the invisible owner of my family's house, and every October I paid $4,880 in property taxes, and in 2022 I put on a new roof for $9,400, and in 2023 a furnace for $6,120, and I never once said a word about it at a holiday. On October 6, 2025, Nana Ruth moved into Bellwether Grove Memory Care in Flint, because she had started leaving the stove on and calling me by her sister's name. The bill was $6,340 a month. My mother's pension and Social Security cover $2,100 of it. I covered the rest. Every month, on the third, automatic transfer, and the director there, Nadine Okafor, 44, had my cell number in her phone under R. Mercer, daughter's daughter. By November of 2025 I was 34. I'd been promoted to forensic accountant. I made $96,000 a year. My whole job, all day, every day, is looking at what people say they spent and finding out what they actually spent. I am very good at it, and I want you to sit with the irony of that for a second, because I certainly have. On November 14, 2025, at 10:47 in the morning, my cousin Tessa Doyle texted me a screenshot. Tessa is 26 and nurse at Sparrow, and the only person in my family who has ever asked me a follow-up question. The screenshot was a Zillow listing. 818, Cherry Bend Road, Owasso, Michigan. Charming 1920s farmhouse, generational care, motivated seller. For photos, one of them of Nana Ruth's yellow Formica table with a bowl of lemons on it that I know for a fact came out of Bryn's own kitchen. Asking price, $319,000. Listing agent, Bryn Mercer Kessler, Helcom and Pine Realty. I sat at my desk and I didn't move for maybe 90 seconds. Then I did the thing I do. I opened a spreadsheet. I called Marla Beecham at 11:20. She sent a letter to the broker of record the same afternoon, and on November 18 she got back a copy of the exclusive listing agreement, dated October 29, 2025. It was signed by me. It was not my signature. It wasn't even close. She'd looped the D like a teenager, and she'd spelled my middle initial wrong, which is A, and which she has known for 34 years. There was also an accepted purchase agreement dated November 21, cash buyers out of Ann Arbor. $327,500, closing December 19, with $10,000 in escrow. If you've ever found out that your family had a plan for your life that they never planned to tell you about, type ledger in the comments. I want to know we're not alone in this. Here's what I did next, and I know it will disappoint some of you. Nothing. I didn't call Bryn. I didn't call my mother. I didn't post anything. Marla asked me on the phone what I wanted to do, and I told her I wanted to think, and what I actually did over those next 8 days was print things. Bank statements from August 2021. The payoff letter. 4 years of tax receipts. The roof invoice, the furnace invoice, 11 months of Bellwether Grove transfers. The deed. The forged listing agreement. I put them in a green pressboard folder, in order, with tabs, because that's who I am. And here's the part I've never said out loud until now. Sitting in my apartment on the night of November 25, I also had a different envelope. A plain white one. Inside it was a quitclaim deed, signed and notarized on October 9, 2025, 3 weeks before Bryn forged my name, transferring 818 Cherry Bend Road from me back to Carol Mercer. Free. A gift. I'd had it drawn up in September. I was going to give it to my mother at Thanksgiving dinner, at the table, in front of everyone, because I am 34 years old and some stupid child in me still believed that if I gave her enough, she'd finally say it out loud. I brought both envelopes to dinner. The green folder stayed in the trunk of my car. The white one went in my coat pocket, and I hung the coat in the hall closet at 2:15 in the afternoon on November 27. There were 11 of us. My mother, Bryn and Grant, and their daughter Junie, who's 9. Uncle Wendell Mercer, 67, retired mail carrier, 31 years on the Corunna route. Tessa and her boyfriend Alec. Two of Grant's cousins whose names I never learned. Me. Bryn had hosted, allegedly. She said the word hosted 4 times before 4 o'clock. What actually happened is that on November 19th I had wired my mother $1,200 for the holiday, because I do that every year, and Bryn had done the shopping with it, and then set a Tupperware of gravy on the counter and called the whole day hers. She was in a very particular mood. I know that mood now. It's the mood of somebody 22 days from a closing. She talked about the house all afternoon. How much upkeep it was. How much Mom struggled with the stairs. How some of us actually show up. At 3:40 she said, to the room, honestly, this place is a money pit. We're bleeding out on it. We. She said we. At 4:12, I got up for a plate, and she put her hand on the spoon, and she said the thing about the penny. I want to be honest about what happened in my body. My ears got hot. My hands went numb from the wrist down. There was a sound in the room like a refrigerator you don't notice until it stops. I said nothing. I sat down by the window and I ate mashed potatoes and I let the conversation heal over the wound like skin over a splinter. Then, at 4:31, Bryn said the second thing. She was talking about Nana Ruth, and she said, $6,000 a month, Delia. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea what I carry? You send a card at Christmas. And my mother said, quietly, Bryn. And Bryn said, no. She should hear it. She was never going to be the one who stayed. Some people are guests in a family. At 6:41 p.m. my phone rang on the table beside my water glass. I had it face up. The screen said Bellwether Grove, and Grant, being helpful, being tall, leaned over and tapped it, and said, it's for you, Dee, and it connected on speaker because that's what my phone does in the car and it had never left car mode. Nadine Okafor's voice came out of it, into that dining room, at conversational volume. Hi, Delia, sorry to bother you on a holiday, I just wanted to confirm November's payment of $6,340 cleared on the 3rd, and that you want December's on the same schedule. Also Ruth ate all her lunch today. She asked for you. Nobody moved. I said, yes. Same schedule. Thank you, Nadine. I hung up. I set the phone down. I looked at my sister and I said nothing at all. Bryn's face did something remarkable. It tried 3 expressions and landed on outrage. That's a mistake, she said. You can't just, that's Mom's account. And my mother, 63 years old, put both hands flat on the table. At 6:44 I texted Marla Beecham one word, come, she lives on Chipman Street, 8 minutes away. I got up, went to the hall closet, put on my coat, went out to my car in the cold, and came back in with a green pressboard folder. I set it on the sideboard next to the pies and I sat back down and I ate a bite of stuffing. Uncle Wendell said, Delia. What's in the folder? Receipts, I said. Marla knocked at 7:03. She was wearing a Michigan State sweatshirt and reading glasses on a chain and she said, Carol. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm sorry to do this today. Bryn said, who is this? Marla said, I'm your mother's attorney. And your sister's. She opened the folder on the sideboard and read from the top sheet. Not dramatically. In the flat voice lawyers use, which is so much worse. Warranty deed recorded with the Shiawassee County Register of Deeds, August 12, 2021, instrument number 2021-014772. Grantor, Carol and Mercer. Grantee, Delia and Mercer. Property, 818, Cherry Bend Road. Consideration, satisfaction of a mortgage in the amount of $58,900 and delinquent taxes in the amount of $11,472. The clock over the doorway said 7:05. Bryn laughed. One syllable, up at the end. That's not real. Marla turned a page. This is the exclusive right to sell agreement you filed on October 29th. This signature is not my client's. She was in Grand Rapids that day. I have the notarized affidavit and the badge logs from her building. Grant stood up so fast his chair went over. Bryn, he said. You told me it was Mom's to sell. He looked at her. You told me the money was for Mom's care. Uncle Wendell folded his napkin and put it beside his plate. 31 years carrying other people's mail, the man understands what a document is. Ruth deeded that house in good faith, he said. Delia paid the note. That's the end of the sentence, Bryn. Tessa said, from the other end of the table, I've got the Zillow listing on my phone. Timestamp November 14th. She had it up while she was telling everybody she was too broke for Nana's copay. And then my mother said it. Not to me. To the tablecloth. I signed it. 4 years ago. In front of Marla. She swallowed. Delia owns this house. She's owned it since 2021. She paid the roof and the furnace and the taxes and Ruth's bills, and I asked her not to tell you, and she didn't, and that is my sin and not hers. That was the moment my sister's face came off. I'd never seen it before. 34 years, and I had never seen the actual face. You were supposed to stay gone, she said to me. Low. Almost reasonable. You had your apartment and your little job and your spreadsheets. You were never going to spend it. It was just sitting there. What's the difference? I said the only 2 things I said all night. You were right about one thing, I said. I didn't contribute a penny. I let that sit. Nobody breathed. I contributed 214,600 of them. She came at the folder. Wendell got between her and the sideboard, not roughly, just standing there the way a mailbox stands there, and Marla said, in that same flat voice, Bryn, your broker of record is Dennis Halcombe. I've already emailed him. You'll want to call him tomorrow, not tonight. Grant took Junie's coat off the hook and buttoned it up himself and carried her out to the truck. Bryn walked out onto the porch in her stocking feet. 26 degrees. She stood there for a while in the light from the window, and then she came back in for her shoes and her purse, and she stopped beside my chair and she said, You planned this? No, I said. You did. I just kept the receipts. The Ann Arbor buyers got their $10,000 back on December 2nd. Dennis Halcombe, 59, filed his own complaint with the state before I filed mine, which tells you something. Michigan's licensing department revoked her real estate license on April 9, 2026. The Shiawassee County prosecutor charged her with uttering and publishing a false document, a felony. She pleaded down in June to a misdemeanor with restitution and probation, and I did not ask for jail, and I don't want a medal for that. Grant filed on January 8, 2026. She lives in Toledo now and works leasing apartments, and I know that only because Tessa told me once and I asked her not to again. My mother still lives at 818 Cherry Bend Road. In March I had Marla draw up something new, not a transfer. A life estate. Carol can live in that house until the day she dies, rent-free, and she cannot sell it, and she cannot borrow $1 against it, and when she's gone it goes into a trust with Junie's name in it. My mother read it at the yellow table and cried and said, You're punishing me. No, I said. I'm keeping the lights on. We talk about once a month. It is polite and it is thin and it is honest, which is more than we had. Nana Ruth had a clear afternoon on December 8, 2025. She knew me. She held my hand and she said, Did you keep your receipts, sweetheart? And I said, Everyone, and she laughed until she coughed. She died on May 2, 2026, at 4:40 in the morning, and Nadine Okafor called me first. In February I got an envelope with a 9-year-old's handwriting on it. It said, Dear Aunt D. My mom says you took our house. I don't think that's true. Do you still have the ledger? I started one. I have $31.75. Love, Junie, I sent her a green pressboard folder with tabs. She sends me a page every month. I keep them all. I bought a house in April, 1140, Ballard Street, Grand Rapids, $189,000, 3 bedrooms, and a garage that smells like sawdust. I'm a senior forensic accountant now, $112,000. There's $71,200 in savings and a yellow Formica table in my kitchen that Wendell drove down in his truck. Here's what I know now, and it took me 34 years to be able to say it plainly. Some families don't have love, they have accounting. And when you're the one they've written into the ledger as an expense, you can spend your whole life paying invoices you never agreed to, hoping that one day somebody will read the total out loud and say thank you. Nobody ever reads it out loud. You have to do that part yourself, and you have to do it calmly, at a table, on a Thursday, in front of everyone. I still have that white envelope. The quitclaim deed, signed and notarized, October 9, 2025, the gift I was going to hand my mother before I knew what my sister had done. It's in the inside pocket of my winter coat, where it's been since 2:15 that afternoon. I never opened it. I never gave it away. Last week I put that coat on to take the trash out, and I felt the soft corner of it against my ribs, and I stood in my own driveway in my own snow, and I thought, I had every reason to hand it over. And I didn't. I sat down at the table I paid for, and I filled my own plate, and nobody's hand came down on the spoon. I did it. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever been the one who quietly kept a family standing while they told everyone you contributed nothing, share this video. Someone in your life might need to hear it. Subscribe if you want more stories like this.